The lawyer's office stood on the edge of a quiet mountain town, 2 streets away from the bakery my grandmother used to visit every morning. I got there ahead of time. The waiting room carried the faint scent of coffee mixed with old paper. Through the window, the mountains looked still and gray, the way they often do before snowfall. My grandmother had lived in that town for almost 40 years. The lodge she managed was about 15 minutes farther up the road, tucked into a hillside surrounded by tall pine trees. It wasn't luxurious, but it was well known. Hikers, horseback riders, and worn-out city people always seemed to end up there. When I was 19, it became the only place left for me. That was the year my parents decided I no longer belonged at home. There wasn't one dramatic explosion. Instead, it unfolded gradually. Arguments about the choices I was making, the work I wanted to pursue, the people I spent time with. Eventually, those conversations stopped feeling like disagreements and started sounding more like judgments. Then, one evening, my father said something short and final. If I was determined to live that kind of life, I wouldn't be doing it under their roof. So I packed a bag. 3 hours later, my grandmother picked me up at the bus station. She never demanded an explanation. She simply made tea and showed me the spare room at the lodge. I stayed there for nearly a year. After that, I moved to the city, slowly built a life for myself, and came back to the lodge whenever I could. My parents never once visited, which is why it felt strange when the office door opened and they walked in. They looked older, of course, my father's hair thinner, my mother moving with more caution than she used to, but the biggest difference was how relaxed they appeared, as if this meeting naturally belonged to them. My father noticed me first. "Well," he said with a faint smile, "look who's here." My mother gave a polite nod. "We assumed you'd show up." I didn't answer. I simply watched them settle into seats across the room. A few minutes later, the lawyer invited us inside. The office itself was small, just a desk, 3 chairs, and a long window overlooking the mountains. My parents sat down like this was something they'd done many times before. My father leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. He said lightly, "That lodge of hers, quite a place." The lawyer opened a folder but didn't begin reading immediately. My mother's eyes flicked toward me. "It really could be something special," she said. "Your father and I were just talking about it on the way here," my father added. He nodded, his tone easy. "Tourism's picking up around here. With the right renovations, that property could become a proper family business." He spoke as casually as if the word family had never been fractured. I felt a strange sensation listening to them, not anger, but a sense of witnessing a conversation that had skipped several lost years. Finally, the lawyer began to read. Much of the will surprised me. My grandmother had left donations to the local library, the volunteer fire department, even the bakery owner who used to deliver bread to the lodge on snowy mornings. She had also set aside small sums for 2 women who had helped care for the property over the years. Each bequest revealed another layer of the quiet life she had built here. Then the lawyer turned the page. "The primary asset," he said, "is the mountain lodge and the surrounding property." My parents leaned forward slightly, their interest immediately piqued. "The property is to be transferred entirely to my grandchild." For a moment, the room held its breath. Then my father nodded slowly. "Well," he said, adjusting in his seat as if to mask surprise, "that makes sense." My mother offered a polite smile. "Yes, of course, we can all work together from there." The lawyer didn't respond. He simply continued reading. "There is, however, a final clause attached to this inheritance." The air in the room grew heavy and still. My father's smile remained, though there was a subtle stiffness to it now. The lawyer's voice slowed, each word deliberate. "The lodge may not be transferred, sold, or shared with anyone who has previously severed familial ties with the inheritor." For a moment, the meaning didn't fully sink in. Then my mother drew in a sharp breath, her composure faltering. "What does that mean?" my mother asked, her voice tight. The lawyer looked up, calm and steady. "It means," he explained, "the property must remain entirely under the inheritor's control if any relatives have previously disowned or expelled them from the family." Silence stretched across the room. My father's expression shifted first. The confidence he'd worn like armor drained away, replaced with something harder to name. "That's very specific," he said. "Yes," the lawyer replied. "Your mother was deliberate when she drafted it." My mother stared down at the table, lips pressed together. "So we couldn't," she began, then trailed off. "No shared business arrangements, no partnerships, none." The finality of it settled like fresh snow, quiet and absolute. No room for argument, no negotiation, just a boundary set years earlier by someone who had thought everything through. My father leaned back slowly, a hint of awe in his voice. "She planned that far ahead," he murmured. I stayed silent because the truth was she probably had. My grandmother never spoke ill of my parents, not once, but she had always been quietly observant. The meeting wrapped up soon after. Outside, the mountain air was sharper than before. My parents lingered beside their car, unsure what to say. My father's gaze drifted toward the mountains, toward the lodge hidden somewhere among the trees. Finally, he said, "Well, I suppose you have a lot to think about." I simply nodded. Then I began walking toward my own car, not hurriedly, just steadily, with a purpose. The road winding up to the lodge curved through the forest, the very same path my grandmother had driven years ago to pick me up. For the first time since the meeting started, the inheritance didn't feel like money or land. It felt like something far more enduring.